Welcome to Evolve Ventures with Amelia Eve, where we explore the psychology, nervous system, relationships, and the live experience of what it actually means to evolve as a human being. Today, we are talking about boundaries, not as walls, not as punishment, and not a way to control other people, but as one of the clearest ways we learn to stay connected to ourselves. A lot of people think that boundaries are hard because they don't know what to say. But most of the time, boundaries are hard because of what happens in the body after we say them. The guilt, the fear, and the pressure to explain, the impulse to soften it so much that the boundary itself quite literally disappears. And that, my friend, is where the real work is. In my work with individuals, couples, leaders, I see this constantly. People often know what their boundary is. Heck, they might even have written it down and clarified it internally. They know that they're tired. They know something doesn't feel right. They know even that they're overextending and that they're exhausted and don't want to do this. They know they're saying yes when their body is really saying no. But knowing the boundary and holding the boundary are two totally different skills. A boundary is not just a sentence. A boundary is your capacity to stay aligned with yourself when someone else has a reaction. That is why boundaries are so connected to nervous system regulation, because if your system believes connection depends on compliance, then a boundary can feel like danger. It can feel like a huge personal threat. And I remember realizing this in myself. I remember going through this quite literally in myself, to the extent where some of these truths are not only sometimes really challenging to understand and hear, but ultimately these are so important to our existence and connection with others that not learning these skills could have and ultimately does have severe consequences. I'll share more about those stories in other episodes. But for right now, there was times ultimately when I could technically say the right boundary words. Like, no, thank you. I'm not coming. I'm not going there. No, no. But inside my system, as if it was bracing for landing in an airplane, my system was still bracing, even after I said the right boundary words. I would say something clearly to maybe my partner or family or friends or colleagues or my boss. And then immediately I would feel that pull to explain more, to soften it. Whatever I just said, just soften it up. Make it smoother. Justify it. Manage the other person's response. Or make sure that they still saw me as a good person, a good daughter, a good colleague, a good leader, a good sister, a good friend. And that was the deeper pattern. It wasn't that I didn't understand boundaries. It was that a part of me had associated being loved with being easy to accept. And right there was my challenge. And that is where boundaries become identity work. Because when you set a boundary, you're not just saying, hey, this is what I need. This is what I value. This is my truth. And I want to share it with you. You're also saying to yourself and to whoever you're setting a boundary with, I am allowed to exist without limits. I am allowed to disappoint someone and still be good, still be wholehearted, still be this version of me. I am allowed to be connected without abandoning myself, my values, my beliefs, my core needs, my paradigm. And for many people, that is not just uncomfortable, it's familiar. And for many people, it's not just unfamiliar and uncomfortable. For many people, it has actually been dangerous. And so their nervous system, like me at times, had learned something. This connects to everything that we've been building here at EVE. And I'm so grateful that you're here because of the fact that we are building. As evolvers, we understand that in relationships, your patterns show up. They reveal themselves to what I've said in former episodes. In emotional safety, your identity actually becomes visible, almost palatable. In communication, your nervous system, its state, it determines whether or not you actually stay present. We've all been there before. And boundaries are where all of that gets tested. So when people say boundaries are like walls that get built, I actually don't think that's quite right. As a matter of fact, I strongly disagree. Walls are built to keep people out, away, not connected. Boundaries, on the other hand, are built to tell the truth, your candor, your truth. A healthy boundary does not say, hey, you don't matter. It says, I matter too. And a boundary can sound like, I can't take that on right now. I need time to think before I answer you. I'm not available for this conversation if we're speaking to each other this way or another. I care about you deeply. And I still need to be honest about what works for me. And here's where so many people lose the boundary. And this is what so many people not only lose that boundary, but in proportion to the losing of that boundary, they lose themselves. They overexplain. They keep adding more words because silence feels unsafe. They try to make the other person feel understood, fully agree, fully approve, or fully accept. But a boundary does not require full agreement or even half agreement, acceptance, approval, understanding to be valid. The only thing it requires is clarity. If your body starts panicking after you set a boundary, that doesn't mean that the boundary itself was wrong. And this is something that I had to learn in my nervous system. I've had to help so many people learn in their nervous system, because when you set that boundary, or even just imagining setting a boundary, some of us have that feeling inside their body that they did something wrong. The boundary was wrong. You, at your core, are wrong. But it may mean just simply that your nervous system is learning a new experience, that connection can survive your truth. And that's scary. That newness, it's unfamiliar. Like I said, it's uncomfortable. And for some people, dangerous. But connection can survive your truth. So the next time you're noticing yourself wanting to set a boundary, or imagining a scenario where you realize that a boundary is really important for you, or on the flip side, you have a deep need that you know only a boundary is going to protect, honor, represent, I want you to ask yourself this: what is my body already telling me? Where am I saying yes? while quite literally contracting inside. Shout out to those evolvers who have said yes so many times and their bodies just started become less of themselves. Because you, if you're here, if you have shown up saying yes while contracting inside, becoming a shell of yourself, and ultimately steamrolling over your values, that means that you're on the path to not do that again. But where are you saying yes while you're contracting inside? Your body's telling you so much. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I am clear? And maybe, just maybe, most importantly, can I let someone else have their reaction without abandoning myself? That one, my friends, that one has hit me time and time again when I find that my nervous system is telling me so much about myself to where it's asking, it's begging, it's pushing that desire, it's pushing that want to set a boundary. It's telling me, can I let someone have their reaction without abandoning myself in this moment when I set a boundary? That one, friends, if you really do ask yourself these questions, you'll learn the simple truth about boundaries that this episode, this golden nugget, is all about. Boundaries are not about becoming harsh, cold-hearted, and for some clients, I'm going to quote directly, heartless. Actually, they are quite the contrary to that. They are about becoming honest, truthful, candid with yourself. And with yourself, showing up with that honesty, that candor, that truth with others. They're not about pushing people away. They're about creating relationships where you do not have to disappear, shrink, contort, chameleonize, mask up to belong. And that is where being an evolver, this work, man, this is part of that evolve journey where you ask yourself these questions and you learn these lessons, not just because it's a one and done, but because through repetition, we understand that this is a part of every evolver's journey. Learning how to stay connected, setting boundaries, clear boundaries without losing yourself. You don't become safer in relationships by having no limits. I was on the phone with a client recently, and we were talking in the context of intimate relationships. And she said something along the lines of, well, if I don't really express those needs, then we'll just get along. And what she is communicating is that in her nervous system, it feels safer to have no limits, to not express her needs. And that was a learned pattern prior to even getting in the relationship that she's in now. So you don't become safer in relationships by having no limits. It is, again, the opposite of that. You become safer when your limits are allowed to exist, not allowed by other people, allowed by you. And more often than not, what I see again and again is that that is a skill we need to develop through practice. So if this conversation resonated with you, the best place to go deeper into this, to integrate this and what you learned a little bit about boundaries into your own world, is in the show notes. You can click where it says EVE Reflections. This is an invitation where you can join me and other evolvers getting practical in their worlds, in your worlds, on this specific topics. Picture a group chat without the pressure or need to respond. That's what EVE Reflections is about. And if you want to hear about this a little bit more in depth and maybe with a little bit more flair or spice to it, feel free to search wherever you're listening to this, Evolve Ventures podcast, or go to evolveventurestech.com podcast, and everything about what we do at Evolve is there. More spice, but always something for you to pull away here at Eve. And boundaries, man, there is so much more to say about this. But for right now, I just want to make sure that we start small and we build. So if this is a topic that, again, resonated with you and you want to learn more about it, please continue to subscribe to Eve, to join me in these conversations, and to never stop evolving, because you showing up today here is a vote for your future self as you navigate the tricky territory of boundaries. As always, keep evolving. We're with you always. Bye, everyone.